to fuel rapid growth, connecting musicians, venues, and fans with a bold new live streaming platform. Megan York, Chief Marketing Officer at Mandolin, explains how this trendy Hoosier startup is pushing the bounds of live streaming and helping artists as well. Plus,
I'm Mary Rachel Redmond, behind bars in Tipton County, a place where people once did time for over a century, now running out of time itself. We go inside the historic Tipton County Jail and Sheriff residence coming up.
Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. The COVID-19 pandemic has not really slowed down the state of Indiana from making big economic development deals. Nearly 26,000 job commitments to create over the next several years. That's so far year to date, as well as more than $4 billion in committed new capital investment. Just this week, a groundbreaking in Maryville for Midwest Truck's new facility in Northwest Indiana, creating potentially up to 150 new jobs. With more, pleased to welcome back to the show Indiana Secretary of Commerce, Jim Schellingren. Jim, again, as always, welcome.
Always good to be with you, Gary.
I want to talk about that announcement in Northwest Indiana in a moment, but first, these are brand new numbers, year-to-date numbers for economic development. 26,000 nearly 26,000 job commitments, $4.8 billion in capital investment, and $27.77 in terms of the average wage. Those are some numbers that seem very healthy, especially as you look at the pandemic. Would you have thought we would have these numbers right now, looking back on it maybe in March and April?
It's interesting, you know, the governor, Gary, his first and foremost concern is always the health of people, as he always says. But in addition to what's happening, and we're having a banner year. In fact, all the numbers we track, whether it be jobs, whether it be CapEx or wages, we're tracking in a record year. Governor holds all those records from 16, 17, or 17, 18, 19, and we're on track for all of those records. Right now, we're at, as you said, over 26,000 jobs, and back when we set the record in 2018, we were end up being 31,112, but we're only at 24.5. So we are outpacing our record years yet again. What
do you think's driving that? I know certainly business climate, but is this reflective of the fact that companies are making decisions based on the future, on 3 to 5 years, maybe more out? And they're making those decisions, feel comfortable about doing it in Indiana?
That's exactly right. The horizons of businesses is a lot longer than, say, you would consider with your health. No question about that. We have had some companies that have put certain things on hold because of the COVID virus. But, in general, a lot of it has to do with what we are as a state. People will make you believe or lead you to believe that the rankings do not matter. But those rankings are done by analysts that look at every single state, and they're from Forbes, they're from U.S. News, they're from Chief Executive Magazine. These are extremely important numbers that are analyzed that everybody looks at. So when companies are looking to relocate or looking to expand, they look at Indiana because of how highly we rank and because of Hoosiers, frankly. We just have an amazing culture, an amazing workforce, amazing people.
Okay, you had a groundbreaking this week in Northwest Indiana, Midwest Truck and Auto Parts, aftermarket component supplier, big Midwest operation there, 150 jobs or commitment for 150 jobs there in Lake County, so spreading out that impact on a statewide basis.
Very excited about that today. Groundbreaking will be today. The governor will be in attendance, and this is an Illinois-based company opening up a facility up in Lake County, so very excited about that. And as you know, I was up there yesterday for the Westlake Corridor. Amazing expansion that will change the economics of Northwest Indiana for the long term.
Very quickly, touch on that because it is a generational project for those outside of Northwest Indiana may not realize how long that's been talked about and how potentially game-changing that could be for the region.
It's a multi-million-dollar project. $324 million of it came from the federal government, and this will extend the South Shore from Hammond all the way to Dyer. That will then be in addition to the double tracking, and we will be able to get from Dyer, Indiana, up to Chicago in 45 minutes. Wow. This is going to open up a whole new economy, thousands of new jobs, and billions of dollars investment in the future.
All right, let's talk about statewide impact, because so much is focused many times on central Indiana. And the numbers I mentioned, the capital investment, about $3 billion of the nearly $5 billion in central Indiana. But outside of Indianapolis, you look at the southwest portion of the state. Coming in next, almost $1 billion in investment there. A lot of it fueled by Toyota, with doing big things in southwest Indiana.
That's right, and it's happening all over the state. We have job announcements from Steuben County to Posey County to Jeffersonville, Clark County, up to Lake County to Tippecanoe, and all the way to Wayne. And certainly we track central Indiana, which we count 34 counties as central Indiana, from east to west, up to Howard, down to Monroe. But it's very proportionate when you look at the different counties. There's 15 of them that we actually track together and consider that southwest region. And they're doing really, really good. They've had over 1,500 jobs here this year, and a CapEx of almost $1 billion. And there's announcements waiting to be made that will be coming in the near future.
Good. Should also mention that we only have 30 seconds, but Northeast Indiana, $335 million, 2,500 jobs, no Forest River, Paragon among some of the announcements up in that region.
Northeast Indiana, I always say the poster child for regionalism. They really, 13 counties up there, and they pull together and they do things very, very cohesive. And they've realized up there the power of regionalism, and it's better there's safety in numbers, and they do it really well there.
All right, Jim Schellinger, the Indiana Secretary of Commerce. Some brand new numbers on economic development. A surprising look, even during the pandemic, at some numbers perhaps on a path to another record-breaking year. Jim, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, the Northeast Indiana Innovation Center in Fort Wayne is launching a new program. It's designed to grow the region's capacity for innovation. The center says the Innovator Mindset Mastermind program shares content created by entrepreneur Dennis Stauffer, which includes free tools that can help business owners and entrepreneurs through an innovation capacity growth process. The tools include 4 90-minute discussions, as well as peer-to-peer mentoring, community building, and support as well. The monthly cohorts can be as big as 15, and importantly includes innovators from all over the state of Indiana. Just ahead, just about all and any musician, all they heard during the pandemic when it first hit was the sound of silence. But next, how a Hoosier startup specializing in live concert streaming is changing that and grabbing some national attention as well.
I feel like an old soul.
Now, bands like Drew Holcomb and The Neighbors and hundreds of artists around the world have Indianapolis-based Mandolin to thank for keeping their music alive. That creative story when we come back.
I feel like a slow dance. I feel like a last chance.
It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, Indianapolis-based startup Mandolin just launched in March, and already it's raised $5 million in a seed round to grow its digital platform to help artists, venues, and fans all over the country connect through live music. With more on the concept and several unique partnerships at fueling growth, pleased to be joined by Megan York. Megan is Chief Marketing Officer at Mandolin. Megan, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's, I think, a fascinating story, and really that a fusion, if you will, as you and I were talking a moment ago off camera, of technology and music, and it's all happening, it's all coming together right here in Indianapolis. Talk about how Mandolin really came about, because it really did address what was one of the real effects on the music industry from the pandemic.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, the pandemic has really sort of decimated the music industry, and our co-founders saw a really, really great opportunity to be able to bring live music back into fans' homes. You know, nothing connects us like music does, and I'm a huge live music fan myself. So during the pandemic, you know, was really missing that. So, you know, we're bringing live music back to people, and then we're also giving, you know, artists and venues that have really been hit economically by the pandemic the opportunity to perform again and sell tickets again and prosper from their art. So it's very exciting to be doing that here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, give us a kind of a thumbnail sketch of the business model, Megan, of how it works and how it competes. You know, there's a lot of free content out there, but I think Mandolin offers kind of a unique experience that really is attracting folks.
Yeah, it really does. So, I mean, if you'll remember when the pandemic started, there were a lot of artists streaming from, on free services from their living room or couch or things like that, which of course, we all appreciated. But Mandolin really is, kind of taking that live music experience to the next level. So high production value, getting these artists back into the studio or back on stage. Our clients are really the artists and their teams and the venues. So we work with all of them to plan the show, plan the content, market the show, ticket the show, all of those things, and then facilitate them with the fans streaming the show and giving them access to it.
Mandolin certainly has been on fire since launching in March. I mentioned the $5 million seed founding round. You're also in venues from the Vogue here in Indianapolis to places like the Ryman Auditorium, really high profile in Nashville and beyond. So your footprint is really extending.
Yeah, it really is. Very excited, like you said, to be working with a lot of the venues here locally. The Ryman was a great win for us. They had limited capacity seating for shows, and then they wanted to open those shows up to thousands of additional people that they couldn't have in the venue. So we've been streaming shows from there. We've been streaming shows from the city wineries all over the country, yep. And the shows that they have outside with limited capacity as well. And then some really great artists like Jude and the Lion and Drew Holcomb. Yeah, it's really exciting. Okay,
Megan, big event coming up, Election Day, throughout the day, November 3, #IVoted Festival. Talk about this. You got hundreds of artists lined up.
We do. The iVoted Festival was a really huge opportunity for us and obviously a really great cause. So the #IVoted Festival, started many years ago, trying to get people to come out and vote. So if people could prove that they, voted, then they were able to go to a free concert at venues. And then they just determined that they wanted to take that festival digital this year, and we were chosen as the platform. So it's going to be the largest digital festival that's ever been held, 600 artists. The artists were chosen because of their popularity or their, following in some of the key swing states. So, and the premise is still the same. You take a selfie with your ballot or at the polling station, yep. Whatever is legal in your particular state, and then submit that. And when you submit your selfie showing that that you voted, you get access to the free festival. And like I said, 600 artists.
Big event coming up Tuesday. Megan York from Mandolin. 50 employees already at the company as well. Another high alpha company achieving some great success. Megan, thanks for the time. Good luck with the event in the week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Also making headlines this week, Fishers-based Fibenomics has closed on its second round of funding in just 6 months. The tech company, which has developed a location-based audio out-of-home advertising platform, raised $6.5 million in the Series A2 funding round. CEO Brent Oakley says the funding will be used to support the launch of new national networks and the addition of up to 25 jobs. The funding round, led by Georgia-based BIP Capital and Indianapolis-based Elevate Ventures, contributed as well. The company currently employs 44 and expects to reach more than 10,000 convenience and grocery stores by next year. Well, for 125 years, it served as the county jail and law enforcement center. Even the sheriff lived there. But now the towering Tipton County Jail and sheriff's residence sits empty, in danger of being demolished. And it's on Indiana Landmark's 10 most endangered list. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond shows us what's being done to save a remarkable piece of Indiana history. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Brought to you by Chapman Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. The man for all seasons, Chapman, chapmanheating.com. Well, in this week's Endangered Indiana series, we go to one of Indiana's oldest jails that officially closed its doors after 125 years in March. Designed by one of the state's most celebrated architects who also built the Indiana State Capitol, this jail and sheriff's residence is one of only 2 National Register listed structures in all of Tipton County. But now it's facing demolition. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more from Tipton.
Concrete floors, steel beds, and bars. It wouldn't leave you with the warm and fuzzies. Kind of scary, in fact.
Not exactly the words you'd think someone might use to describe a building they're hoping to save. But the Tipton County Jail and Sheriff's residence is steeped in history. A landmark in a town starved for architectural ties to its past.
We have so few buildings here left in our county that are actually of historical significance.
It was the last operating sheriff's residence and jail in the state of Indiana.
But that historic run came to an end earlier this year.
They made the decision to build a new jail several years ago, and that construction just completed, and they moved all the prisoners from this structure into the new jail, so this one became vacant.
And Tipton residents are determined to save it.
It's a beautiful structure. Much of the original woodwork is still intact with a beautiful fireplace, wood mantel still there. There are some original electric fixtures.
This is the upstairs of the sheriff's residence.
At the end of the 19th century, several state governments, especially in the Midwest, required sheriffs to live next door to the county jail. And in the case of Tipton County, the sheriff's family residence was actually attached to the jail. When this residence opened in 1895, it was then lived in all the way to 2006.
It tells us what life was like in the 1890s and the early 1900s. Once treasures like that are gone, they're gone forever. It would be too expensive to try to reproduce a building like this.
I'd like to see it turned into something that the community can come through, maybe take part in some type of retail experience that also exposes them to a display of our past. We all can learn from what's taken place in our history and where we came from. That's my hope, is how we can incorporate it.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, also making headlines this week around Indiana, as Steuben County auto parts manufacturer shutting its doors by the end of the year, leaving more than 60 workers without jobs. The owner of Metaldyne BSM has notified the state it's permanently closing its plant in Fremont. Metaldyne, a subsidiary of Detroit-based American Axle and Manufacturing, produces a variety of auto components. The company says production workers will be laid off in late December, and a few staff members will stay until it is permanently closed in June. If you're heading to the polls to vote and you're worried about those incredibly long lines, you'll want to check out what we've got coming up next. Some of the brightest tech minds in central Indiana have come up with a software and a website that tells you how long your wait will be. We'll show you how it works when we come back. In Tech for Progress, in partnership with VoteSafe Indiana, Lesson Lee, Anvil, and Common Cause of Indiana are collaborating in an effort to protect this year's election, help to do that, and ensure every Hoosier's vote counts. The organization has developed technology that tracks polling wait times in Marion County. And with more on how it all works, I'm pleased to be joined by In Tech for Progress founder and CEO, Roger Dietz. Roger, welcome to the program.
Hi, Gary. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into the technology, let's talk about the organization that you founded, In Tech for Progress. You're an executive at Springbuck, an Indianapolis-based technology company. What's your vision, really, for the organization In Tech for Progress?
Yeah, I've long been interested in getting the tech community more engaged politically, and this year felt like a really important year to make something happen. And so we started In Tech for Progress with a vision that we could help out in this year's election, but then eventually we could be motivating members of our tech community who have skills and resources that could really apply to civic projects and make change.
Anyone who's been around Marion County has seen the long lines at polling places all over the county. So this idea really has relevance right now. You've engaged a number of tech companies, Springbuk, Lessonly, Anvil, among others. Talk about the pieces involved here and how this all came together.
Yeah, so I've been a longtime friend of the founder of Vote Safe Indiana, and we were discussing some ideas for how the tech community could apply their skills and resources to help out in the election. And meanwhile, Lessonly also had raised their hand and wanted to help and got the idea to build a website for reporting voting times. But we knew we were going to need data to power that site, and we knew we were going to need to enable technology to those volunteers to submit that data. So between Lessonly and Vote Safe Indiana and Intech for Progress, and then Anvil, we started to work up the idea for bringing all these different pieces together so we could report on the vote times.
Well, let's talk about how it's being accepted. How it works, pretty simple. Folks go to a website, right, and they can gauge the wait time at their particular polling place. Talk about how this is being accepted and how many people, at least so far, have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, it's been really, it's really resonated with the community. Some of our numbers over the past few days, we've had around 36,000 folks visiting the site. I hear lots of stories, just word of mouth, people saying that they've used it in their voting. We know that we have nearly 200 volunteers that came in to help report those times. We've had a massive influx in volunteers over the past few days. So it's really reached adoption quickly.
Again, the website is indyvotetimes.org. Roger, as you look going forward, obviously Election Day coming up on Tuesday, but beyond this, is this the start of something that you think can be a real catalyst for engagement of the Indiana technology community in politics and really community engagement?
Yeah, I really do. So clearly the idea is resonating now. We feel like this is something that could be taken statewide and even beyond. And from the tech community's perspective, you know, we're collecting a lot of data here that we think can be used then to influence public policy going forward. And I know that we have a ton of folks in the tech community interested in being more engaged. And so I think showing the success of this first project will really build momentum to work on future projects.
The Indiana tech community growing in so many ways, and in this example, in terms of engagement in the community as well. indyvotetimes.org. You're going out to vote. Want to check the wait times at your polling place. You go to that site, indyvotetimes.org. Roger Dietz, an executive at Springbuk, also the founder and CEO at Intech for Progress. Roger, thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much, Gary. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, in our next half hour, meet the Indiana Pacers' new head coach, Nate Bjorgrin. It's his first head coaching gig, but he already has a solid game plan for what's next for the Pacers. Bjorgrin shares his vision with Bill Benner. Well, an interesting story about new Indiana Pacers head coach Nate Bjorgrin that many Hoosiers can relate to. The basketball goal where he shot hoops and dreamed of landing in the NBA still sits on the garage at his parents' Storm Lake, Iowa home. Bjorgrin did make it to the pros, not as a player, but as a coach. Indeed, in a steady climb from humble beginnings as a high school coach in his native Iowa to the NBA's G League to winning a championship ring as an assistant with the Toronto Raptors, Nate Bjorgrin now brings his accumulated skills to the Indiana Pacers, and Bill Benner makes the introduction inside Indiana sports. Bill.
Gary, thank you. As Pacers president of basketball Kevin Pritchard and general manager Chad Buchanan embarked on a diligent search for the next Pacers coach, Nate Bjorkgren's name was not among those who surfaced. But after he was announced, the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive, and Pritchard and Buchanan made it exceedingly clear that Bjorkgren had clearly elevated himself during the interview process. And the new Pacers coach joins us on the show. And Nate, welcome to the show, and thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Well, some of the themes, and again, everybody said that during the interview process, you came out with some themes that really clearly elevated you. Talk about generally what you tried to emphasize during that interview process, Nate.
Yeah, it was a very good interview process. It lasted nearly a month. Started with a Zoom call, probably an hour and 15 minutes there. Very good conversation, had good flow, good rhythm. Then a few hours later, I got invited back to an in-person interview in Indianapolis, which was a Sunday evening and an all-day Monday event. And then all the way up to the phone call for when I got the job. But every part of that interview process was very important. I enjoyed the basketball conversations I had with Chad and Kelly and Kevin Pritchard. Very good conversations, but there was a lot of, there's so many good coaches out there, so many, but I think they might have liked the creativity and the management of the team and theories on offense and defense and how we want to be very disruptive on both ends of the floor. So those are the ideas that we talked most on, and I believe those are the ideas that I shared are why we're sitting here today. And it's an honor to be the head coach of the Indiana Pacers.
And Nate, you come as an assistant in the NBA, but you've had head coaching experience with 4 different teams in the G League, and that's actually where you met Nate Nurse, who you eventually hooked up with again in Toronto and won a championship there. Just talk about your time in the G League and then your relationship with Nick Nurse.
Yep, yeah, Coach Nick Nurse. He gave me my first opportunity 14 years ago. That was as a volunteer assistant, which was then the D League. It was with an expansion team called the Iowa Energy. And we spent many hours, many days together. We've coached a lot of games together. I've learned an awful lot from him. And I was his assistant coach for 4 years there in the D League. And then the next 4 years, I served as a head coach. I was head coach of the Dakota Wizards, the Santa Cruz Warriors. I went back to Iowa to be the head coach of the Iowa Energy, and then the Bakersfield Jam. And all 4 of those spots during my head coaching time there were very memorable for my family, for myself, the players that I coached. It was, minor league basketball is a lot of fun to coach in, to develop your own philosophies as a coach. Things change so frequently. You have 2 guys get called up, 1 guy gets traded, 1 guy goes overseas, so your roster changes constantly. So it really prepares you as a coach for when you get opportunities like this at the next level.
Talk about, there's a saying here, in 49 states, it's just basketball. This is Indiana. I know you addressed that in your initial press conference, but Indiana basketball is a very kind of sacred thing.
Very much so. My daughter's in 5th grade. My son is in 2nd grade, and they are very excited to be a part of it. The great high school basketball in the state of Indiana, the great college basketball, and of course the Indiana Pacers. We are, myself, my wife, my children, they're excited to be in the public school system, to be a part of the high school rivalries. And myself, or if I can't take them to games, my wife take them to the great high school boys and girls basketball games that take place in this state. So it's going to be a lot of fun for my family to experience, and for us as my family to meet the great people in this state and the great Pacer fans everywhere.
Nate, as we wrap up, we've got just about 45 seconds left. Talk briefly, if you could, about the conversations you've had so far with the players that are coming to your roster here sooner, hopefully, than later.
Very positive. I've talked to them all multiple times, text them all multiple times, seen some of them. So it's a great group. Not only are they great basketball players, they're even better people. They're even smarter people. So this is a team that's very intelligent, that plays hard. They're ready for disruptive style of play that we continue to talk about. And I'm looking forward to coaching them but even to get to know them more and more and their families and their lives. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, Nate, we certainly appreciate you again making the time. We can't wait to see you here in Indiana. We can't wait for the start of training camp, as I'm sure you feel the same way. Best wishes, and sooner, again, hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll have NBA basketball. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Nate Bjorgrin, the new coach of the Indiana Pacers. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, Indianapolis-based Our Health is now Marathon Health after merging with a Vermont-based company. Despite inking the business deal just weeks before the pandemic, the on-site healthcare provider says it is continuing to grow at a feverish pace. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta is here now with more. Kylie.
Well, thank you, Gary. Marathon Health has two main functions. It provides on-site healthcare clinics for large employers and near-site clinics that can serve a cluster of small to medium-sized businesses. One America and Toyota Industries of North America are just two of its Indiana clients. While the rocky economic climate this year has been difficult for many companies to weather, Marathon Health says it's riding a wave of new business. Marathon President Dr. Jeff Wells joins me now to tell us why the company has been able to expand even during an era of cutbacks. Dr. Wells, thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Kylie.
Sure. Let's start with a quick introduction to Marathon Health, and if you could explain its focus on cutting healthcare costs for companies.
Sure. Marathon Health really brings a modern approach to primary healthcare delivery for employers. As you mentioned, we offer on-site primary care health center teams for large organizations, as well as near-site shared locations for other employers in communities like Central Indiana. We've also increasingly expanded virtual care delivery, and ultimately the whole goal is to really drive improved outcomes for those employers and their employees. So improved access to care, improved health outcomes, and lowered cost of care.
So you merged with Marathon Health in early 2020, just weeks before the pandemic, but it's been a very good year for your company. Can you tell us about the growth that you've been seeing this year?
Yeah, thanks. The first point, we've certainly, endured a very challenging year, no different than any other organization out there. Between the pandemic and all of the issues that's put on just the public health of employees, for all the organizations that we serve, as well as just some of the macroeconomic challenges, and certainly varies by industry. But we feel so proud of our team and the employers that we've partnered with to really work together to navigate the pandemic and continue to deliver, value back to those patients and those employers. And we are really pleased that we've been able to not only grow through the pandemic, but heading into next year, already have added, I think, 25 net new locations. We'll probably grow north of 30%. I think it's just a real testament to the outcomes and the value that the team delivers day in and day out.
So obviously the pandemic has had a lot of ripple effects. One of those being employers are looking for ways to cut back. Is Marathon Health not one of those things that employers look to cut?
I think this is really the distinction. As I talk to business leaders, across Indiana, oftentimes they initially think that what we provide is more of an amenity or a wellness type of an investment. But very quickly, as we discuss it, realizes that sort of access to an independent primary care team is really one of the most effective ways to help patients lower their cost of care while also improving health outcomes. And so for those individual patients that engage with Marathon Health teams, they save about 25% in the total cost of care compared to a similar group that doesn't engage with our care teams. And so this is really an investment that has an economic return. And so I think particularly at a time where businesses are really, scrutinizing every dollar that's invested, and particularly a large expense like healthcare, we've actually been able to demonstrate that this is one of the most important things to maintain, if not expand. Now, and certainly, the pandemic itself has created maybe an even more of an opportunity for employers to think about the role that they play with the health and the safety of their employees.
I know the company says it has 2 headquarters in Indianapolis and also in Vermont. But if we look at this growth through an Indiana lens, so to speak, what does it really mean for the state of Indiana?
Yeah, I think the state of Indiana continues to be one of the largest markets for our organization. We've got north of 100 sort of headquarter ambassadors, which is what we call our employees, here in central Indiana, in Indianapolis. We've got numerous health center locations really all throughout the state, as far northwest as Valparaiso and Maryville down to Madison, Indiana, and really everywhere in between. We expect right now to add about 150 jobs. Many of those, probably as many as 50 or so, will be in the state of Indiana. We're also growing in Southwest Ohio, in Cincinnati and Columbus and the greater area there. And there's a number of Indiana residents that live and work in that market as well. So the Midwest, and in particular Indiana, continues to be a real engine of growth for our organization. And we're excited about, the ability to work in a great state like Indiana.
Okay, just a couple seconds left, but I know you put a big expansion on virtual care. Can you tell us about that quickly?
Yeah, quickly, if you go back to March, we realized for the safety of the patients that we serve and our own clinical teams, we really needed to move away from in-person care for a period of time. We actually shifted in a matter of 2 weeks to 90% of all of our visits were done virtually as opposed to in person. It's now about 50-50, but we've probably accelerated 2 years worth of innovation just by necessity with the pandemic. And amazingly, the patient satisfaction scores are actually even higher in virtual care delivery than they have been in person. We believe fundamentally that both are critical, and relationship-based care really needs a degree of in-person support. But virtual has been a real big opportunity for us to meet the needs of our patients right now.
All right, well, Dr. Wells, congratulations on growing your footprint both here in Indiana and across the country. Thanks for being on the show today.
Kylie, hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, up next, the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana taking a page out of the Launch Fishers high-tech playbook. Why the Girl Scouts are turning to a co-working model and how it could impact dozens of Central Indiana communities. Well, the Girl Scouts of Central Indiana launching an innovative high-tech model to better serve its community. The organization has relocated all membership field staff to 24 co-working spaces throughout Central Indiana and shifting its retail store presence from a handful of locations to pop-up sites. The success of the Launch Fishers co-working space, that model, one of the key drivers for the shift in strategy. Girl Scouts of Central Indiana Chief Executive Officer Danielle Shockey and Launch Fishers and Indiana IoT Lab founder John Wexler join us now with more, and welcome to you both to the show.
Thank you.
I think this is really is an innovative solution to a challenge. Danielle, I'll start with you. First of all, Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, you've got a big footprint. Talk about the wide area you serve and the number of people you serve there at the Girl Scouts.
Sure. So we serve 45 Central Indiana counties, which is around 21,000 Girl Scouts and 10,000 volunteers. And so that's a lot of square footage to cover, as well as miles and urban and rural locations.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the crux of the issue there. As you began to look at things and kind of think about this co-working model, what really led you to the decision to go to this very different looking model?
So previously we had 7 facilities that ranged from standalone buildings to in-strip malls and so forth. And really we began studying over a year ago the number of our customers who were utilizing those spaces well. And we found that it was very low. And then we started to look at things we wanted to solve for, which is serving our membership better. And our membership didn't only live in those 7 communities, as well as raising the perception and the awareness of the organization. So getting out of just, again, those 7 locations out to these 24 co-working spaces has frankly solved for a lot of challenges in the organization and is going to allow us to serve our mission. We can't even begin to measure the number of ways at this point.
And so in steps the co-working model, kind of the father of co-working in Indiana, John Wexler. John, Launch Fisher's a great example, I think, either the first or certainly one of the first co-working spaces in Indiana. Now there are many around the state. Talk about how this partnership really is working.
Well, first of all, success has 1,000 fathers. Gary, I'm happy to be one of the many that have helped build this co-working ecosystem around the state. Really, the way it's going to work is the Girl Scouts now will have 24 different front doors around the state. It's going to bring them much closer to those they serve, but also it will cross-pollinate them with the innovation and entrepreneurship communities in every location around the state. So when you look at the excitement that I see building in the many locations that will be hosting the Girl Scouts in their communities, you're going to have opportunities to partner up on guest speakers and workshops and all sorts of entrepreneurial and innovative programming opportunities. And that, to me, is what's most exciting.
And as you look at what goes on, for those who may not know, but in a co-working space, there really is an innovative, entrepreneurial vibe, if you will, in those co-working spaces. How do you see that translating into really making this partnership a success?
Well, it's I think what we're seeing here is the very essence of why this is important to every community in Indiana, and that is when you invest in the environment for entrepreneurship and innovation to take root, good things happen. This initiative is really an outgrowth of just a discussion and an idea with the Girl Scouts that happened more than a year ago at our last Co-working Passport Summit. We're having the next one in November, by the way. But we had the group together and we just kind of threw out this idea. They took the idea under study and ended up building this program and ran with it. And I just think it's a great example of how innovative things happen when you invest in the environment for entrepreneurship to take root. And I applaud the Girl Scouts for seeing this and taking the initiative to do it.
Yeah, a lot of elements to this, Danielle. Among them, efficiencies. You look to not only gain a lot of the things you're talking about here from an association standpoint with the tech community, but also save money as well.
We're going to save around $312,000 annually once this is fully actualized. And that means actualized in terms of closing some of the other standalone locations. However, that $312,000 we're investing back into our camp properties, which our girls love, and to additional girl programs. So it's truly a win-win.
It's an innovative model. The Girl Scouts of Central Indiana partnering with co-working spaces around the state of Indiana. Danielle Shockey, the CEO of Girl Scouts, and John Wexler, the founder at Launch Fisher's, the Indiana IoT Lab. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with how things go. I'm sure it'll be a success going forward.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, a red-hot housing market and a new option for college students to make a career in real estate. There's a growing demand to get more professionals into the field. Up next, learn more about Kelley School of Business at IUPUI's new real estate co-major. Well, the pandemic has certainly impacted all areas of the economy, including real estate in the United States. It's also creating demand for talent in areas like commercial real estate. A new program at the Kelley School of Business at IUPUI is attempting to help fill that demand for talent. I'm pleased to be joined by Associate Director of the IU Center for Real Estate Studies, Sarah Kors. And Sarah, welcome to the program.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk about this. This is a new co-major in the program. We want to talk about how it was created, but first of all, a co-major, what's the program all about?
Well, it can be paired with any other business major within the Kelley School, and it's 15 credit hours, including our hands-on commercial real estate workshop, which lets students interact directly with members of the commercial real estate industry, and it provides a broad conceptual and technical knowledge base for them to go out into the world with.
Commercial real estate industry, a real demand for talent. Talk about how this program came about. You come to IUPUI, the Kelley School there, from the private sector. Talk about how this is really an outgrowth of conversations with the private sector.
Yeah, this is a direct response to feedback that IUPUI got from local real estate companies that they need to fill talent from central Indiana sources. So they're really looking for talented, prepared students who are invested in living and working in Indiana. And with most of the Kelley Indianapolis students remaining in Indiana after graduation, it really made sense for us to provide that preparation and to fill those pipelines for the talent that they need to stay here in Central Indiana.
Talk about the commercial real estate market affected in various ways depending on the area of the country. But talk about here in Central Indiana and maybe more broadly in Indiana, how the commercial real estate market is faring during the pandemic.
Well, overall, it's doing quite well, and I think a lot of that has to do with how much of our market is focused on logistics because we're located within a day's drive of the majority of the United States. So industrial real estate is doing very well nationwide right now, and we're primed to take advantage of that. But other sectors are doing well because we are a historically stable market.
Yeah, so not the big ups or the big downs, those big swings tends to benefit, I think, Indianapolis and again, more broadly, Indiana. As you look at the response so far, what are you hearing from students, maybe from companies, in terms of their reaction to the new co-major?
Well, students are really excited. We have a lot of seniors trying to pick it up before they graduate this spring. We have younger students entering the program, trying to figure out how they can make this work, getting invested in the commercial real estate industry, and the companies have been extremely responsive. We have a lot of people, overwhelming support, wanting to get involved with the program. I'm talking to people nearly every day who want to get involved with the program and support the students at IUPUI.
You mentioned companies and the engagement of companies here in Central Indiana. How important is that, kind of that high touch, if you will, of students being able to engage in the private sector and get some of that real world networking and experience?
Well, in my opinion, it's absolutely vital. Real estate especially is built on networking. And so these students need to have connections before they go into the industry, and that really helps them gain a foothold. And when we can have our industry giving back to our students, it helps us tailor the education program to meet the needs of our local employers.
All right, a new program at IUPUI, a co-major, real estate, focused on commercial real estate here. Sarah Kors is the Associate Director of the IU Center for Real Estate Studies. And Sarah, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the program. We hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, the owner of several high-profile restaurants in Indianapolis says permanently closing a gourmet burger eatery. Burger Study. Indianapolis-based Hughes Culinary says economic conditions brought on the pandemic have really made operations unsustainable. The company says the restaurant, which opened in 2017, really was designed to rely on downtown office workers, sporting events, and conventions. Stay-at-home orders, of course, the cancellation of numerous conventions and events, diminished traffic in downtown Indianapolis and along Georgia Street in a big way. Hughes operates St. Elmo Steakhouse, Harry and Izzy's, 1933 Lounge by St. Elmo, and the HC Tavern and Kitchen. And Hughes says those businesses continue to perform pretty well. The company says all Burger Study employees have been offered jobs at other Hughes restaurants. And I will be right back with a closing thought right after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, for 13 years, he climbed the ladder at Microsoft as one of the founding engineers for Excel 2007. Now Rob Colley has created an Indianapolis-based business intelligence consulting firm. He'll be on the show to talk about what makes his firm different. Plus, In Fame, it's a collaborative, employer-led college work-based learning program, recruiting for its inaugural 2021 class, how the program helps students gain career experience and a college degree at the same time. Plus, we'll preview efforts to host next year's Final Four. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.